I'm part of Team Lyceumm. Welcome to Lyceumm's virtual event, Repair or Prepare, a conversation with industry experts. Tonight, we're in conversation with Ms. Sahana Rabindranath. Sahana is a psychotherapist, an NLP practitioner, and an EFT practitioner. She's got about 20 years experience working with children and adults for transformation. We look forward to our conversation with her. Thank you for being here with us. We look forward to your wisdom and learning through this conversation tonight. Thank you again for being part of this conversation.
Thanks. I think it's really important we talk about this stuff, and I really like that you're taking this initiative.
Thank you,
good.
sir. Thank you. So I've got like a couple questions. One of my favorite questions to ask the experts on this program is, how did you come to do what you do currently?
Oh, that's a long story. I've always been interested in the mind and body. Initially, I thought, I'll do things related to acupuncture or something like that when I was a kid, and then I realized that there are other things that affect the body, which is emotions. My journey started very young, actually.
Okay.
So I got into learning a lot of stuff about holistic healing. And one of the things that you do when you do that is to learn about the mind. So I studied a lot of psychology, and I did a lot of professional programs on the mind and how the mind functions. And some of them you would know, like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and RTT, which is rapid transformational therapy. So I happen to be one of the first in India to be certified on rapid transformational therapy.
Wow.
So yeah, and I keep exploring whatever I can do, because I think it's really important to learn new techniques to be able to help people.
Right.
And that's something that's come very naturally to me. So might as well, use that skill.
Yeah. Through this pandemic, or through this situation that the world is currently being in, I think one group of people that have been affected are children.
Yes.
And they're also the group of people who have kind of been ignored. They have been thrown into corners in the house and asked to deal, and they've been shaken out of their schedules and their comfort zone, their people, etc. And they've just,
right.
I think that's one group that has been has struggled and has been ignored. In what areas do you think children have been affected? In what ways have children been affected by this lockdown or this situation, COVID situation?
Okay, there's no question they've been affected, right? And through and through, everything about their lives has been affected. The first thing that's really important for children is routine, because that's how they learn. Even if you watch them playing, what they do is do things repeatedly so that till they're comfortable and they won't do any more.
Yeah.
And that ends on day one, it begins again on day two.
Yeah.
And they continue to do a similar activity even while playing, so that they learn what they're learning really well.
Repetition.
So to master it is something that they want to do. So one of the things that we've done to be able to teach them is to put them into schools, or homeschool them, or whatever we choose as a method of teaching them. And most children go to schools. So the impact that the lockdown has had is, first of all, it's taken away that routine from them. So it's welcome for a short while, especially when you're 10 to 12, that age group. It's really welcome, because that's when they start getting serious homework to do, and they don't want to study so hard. But after 2 weeks, if you watched, you can think about the kids that after 2 weeks, it becomes really difficult for them to manage. They don't know what to do. And that's because that routine has been taken away from them. It's very confusing. And then, of course, comes along with that the slouching on the or lying on the couch and watching TV, or playing with a tab, which is very convenient for parents because it takes their attention away from making the house messy or running around and breaking stuff, which would ultimately happen if they're really active.
Yeah.
Apart from routine, I think one of the things that's really affected them is having to deal with confined spaces. Children love to play. They love to go outside and explore things. And when you tell them you can't step out, and all of a sudden, what will a 5-year-old understand of what COVID means, or why it's necessary not to step out, not to touch a wall, not to put your hand on the banister, not to touch the lift? How would they understand any of that? And and you're saying no stepping out of the house, no going and meeting your friends when you're free. What they really want to do is to go out and meet their friends. And how would they understand any of that? Even if they're not allowed to go out and meet another person, they would really want to go out and play on the street by themselves, or just walk up to the, if it's a gated community, they'd like to walk up to the shop there or to the community club, or they want to go out to the parks there. If you're living in outside of a gated community, in a smaller society or whatever, you want to go to the kirana shop. Children want to do that. When they have holidays, the first thing they want to do is go and buy some biscuits or bread or eggs. They just want to do some errands for parents, or just go keep buying stuff because it's some way to keep themselves occupied. Now all of this stops all of a sudden. And apart from that, there is no physical activity because they don't know what to do now. Now, not having that physical activity because of the confined space, because of the lack of routine, which they would otherwise run from one class to another in school, or get ready to go to school, that itself is a big activity for them physically, quite tiring for them after a while, right? There's nothing to do now. And that's quite distressing for a child.
So you touched on a change in the routine, confined spaces, lack of physical activity. Now, what are some things that a parent could do to counteract the effect that these three things have on the child? I mean, a lack of routine has a certain effect on the child. A lack of being able to play or physical activity has an effect on the child, and the lack of being in a confined space also has an effect on the child. And while I think of confined spaces, I'm thinking of another aspect altogether of being in a household of abuse, whether a parent is abusing another parent or abusing the child. And that's a different story altogether, which we'll talk about later. But how does a parent notice the effect of these three things that you pointed out on the child, the negative effect, and how do they then counteract it?
To answer that, the first thing that I'd like to say is the parents themselves, we must acknowledge, are really stressed out because of the situation.
Yeah, we are.
They must be going through a lot. Yeah, it is true, because it's not easy for anyone to go through this kind of a thing. A lockdown is it stops business, it stops your routine work. If you're employed, everything just shuts down, and then there's financial pressures that you need to think of because you don't know for how long this is going to go on. And to top all of that, one of the things that we found is that a lot of people have called and said that few people have been able to enjoy their time with their family, but because of the stressful time, a lot of people end up creating stress for themselves and for others. And the environment at home is really not as pleasant as it should be at a time like this, right? And then there are also parents who are trying to be overproductive because they suddenly find that, oh, I have so much of time. But fact of the situation is that there are new things that you need to adjust to. So I had this one parent who called me from Mumbai and said, oh, you know what? I'm trying to spend time with my children, but then I'm also trying to get a six pack. And I'm also applying for programs.
Oh, very
And,
nice.
now the thing is that um, he thinks that it's very important to utilize this time to be able to reach the goal that he set for himself physically, which means he's putting in 1.5 hours of working out. And how's that going to leave you at the end of the day? Tired, right? Apart from that, there's going to be a lot of brain work that he's doing because he has to do his job. And he's trying to do, I mean, if you've noticed on LinkedIn or anywhere else, on a lot of social media sites, people are just saying, okay, I got this certification or that certification. And this is all despite having work to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not, and for a lot of people, doing household chores has become something that's not convenient anymore, first of all. Secondly, we've all had help. A lot of us have had help to be able to do that. Now, all of a sudden, help stops.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, I didn't deal very well with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me as well, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you find that you need to mop your own house, you have to clean up stuff. It is difficult when you're in the habit of doing it. It's very different, but you think that you can do it the first day, second day you're happy to do it because it's a new thing to bring in, and on the fourth day you find that it's very difficult for the body to cope. Unless you're really physically fit, it's very difficult for the body to cope. Simple thing like doing the dishes seems like very simple, but when you're at home, invariably you end up trying to make different things. The sink is perpetually full.
Yeah, it's magic. It just like grows in
Right?
that. I don't understand it. Yeah, but there's definitely one thing that it's taught me. It's taught me to be more grateful and more aware of the work that the house help does. And I've become very, very aware of it. At least for us and my children now, we become so aware of the number of dishes we're throwing in that sink, or the muck in the house, or things like that. So we tend to be more conscious about what we're expecting them to do, and actually reach out and do some of it on our own rather than just leave everything on her to do, kind of deal. Yeah, but that's again something else to talk about another day. But yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, definitely.
So now, so this is stressful in itself, right? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because parents need to understand that this is stressful, right? And to top that, you have your work pressure. And working from home may seem easy, but it's really not.
No.
Because yeah, I mean, you can't all of a sudden tell a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, don't come to my desk now, I'm going to work and I don't want, you to walk around the house like it's your own house. Just shut up and sit in a corner so that I can work. It doesn't work that way. There are a lot of people, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, some of us may have the privilege of having separate spaces, which is fine. Still, when you're working, those spaces definitely get invaded when people are at home 24 hours, right? It's not easy for people to stay out in their space. So that causes the pressure, right? Apart from that, there are other things that you need to get done on time. With all of this, when a child has been going away to school in the morning or has a routine of its own to take care of, things are in place. You've not had to take care or nurture the child through the day for a while now.
Yeah.
And now it's become something that's, a necessity.
Yeah.
You have to keep a watch on them. You don't know what they're doing. I mean, they could jump off the balcony, or they slip their leg into something that hurts. The cycles, whatever it is, you have to keep a watch on them. Now, it's very different to have someone take care of them and do it the whole day yourself. Now, once a child is about 7, once they start going to school, the amount of physical energy the child has is something that's not You really have to be fit to be able to be running after them and taking care of them, right?
Yeah.
With all of this, if the parent has to take care of that as well, both parents need to take care of this as well, all of a sudden, the whole day, right? It becomes extremely stressful for the parent.
Yeah.
And then between people who are at home, because of all of this stress, there is a lot of anger, irritation, what are you doing? What am I supposed to do? Why aren't you doing this? This kind of talk becomes very, very,
Common.
yeah, very, very common. And then the child is watching all of this.
Yeah.
Okay? So are we really able to create a stress-free environment for a child is something that we need to think of. So when you're trying to be overproductive, you're killing yourself. You're killing your spouse or, whoever else is at home, maybe your parents-in-law, whoever you have to take care of. And to top it all, children tend to be very, very observant and pick up on things that they shouldn't be picking up on, right? So when there is some level of discomfort when parents are talking to each other, the children pick it up like that.
Yeah.
And if they have to watch this the whole day, you can imagine what's going to be running on their little minds.
Yeah.
They want to run away from that situation.
Yeah.
And that again brings us back to what the confined space is doing to them.
To them, yeah.
Right? So I would just, first of all, since you asked what can parents do to be able to recognize what children are going through, first of all, recognize what you are going through.
Yeah.
Try and understand that if you are trying to be overproductive or you're finding it difficult to cope, you need to change that. You need to be able to ask for help, or you don't need to be a perfectionist. Your house can lie untidy for a day or two. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter.
I agree with you. I say amen there.
Yeah, you don't have to fall, bend backward, break your back, and make sure that everything is in place, because the kid is going to pick up stuff and throw it on the floor again.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's one of the biggest stressors for moms, really, because you keep putting things away and children keep bringing it, putting it down again. And what else can they do at a time like this? So let them play. I mean, like if they have their toys strewn all over the house, you're not going to have any guests. As long as people are not tripping over them, let them have their space, right? The next thing that parents need to do is to communicate regularly with their children. Now, when I say regularly, I mean really communicate with them, not mollycoddle them, not breathe down their necks, but actually talk to them about what they're thinking or what's happening with them in ways that they can understand and they can speak. Because I think in a culture that we have today, the culture that we have today, most parents think that they have to be their child's friend. And to be their child's friend, they have to be with their child all the time or know everything the child is doing, right? Now, what I have found is that doesn't work. Especially in our culture, it doesn't work for you to be their friend. You've got to be friendly with them, but you cannot be their friend because you got to parent them. And a lot of people don't understand this. There's a very fine line there.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're trying to be their friend, the next thing that happens is, why can you go out and I not go out? It's not, when we're talking about disciplining a child, a lot of people see disciplining as a very negative thing these days. I've had parents complaining that, in fact, I have this 13-year-old kid that I'm working with right now, whose mom and dad were complaining that she says, why are you panicking so much? So what if I go downstairs and come back and I don't sanitize my hands? You think you're going to die of COVID? Let's see. This is because the parents have pampered her so much that she thinks that she can, she's equal to them.
Entitlement.
Right, absolutely. And uh, when a child is doing that, it becomes even more stressful for the parent. But who created it in the first place? Right?
Yeah.
It's a parent that's given the child that space. And I'm not saying that you need to be, you should never let the child back answer. I'm not talking of being old school like the 50s or the 60s or how our parents were brought up, not at all. But a child needs to know when stop means stop.
Yeah. Boundaries.
Right? They need to understand boundaries, and they need to understand what is important and what can be stretched and what cannot be stretched. What a parent will take and what a parent will not take, which I think a lot of parents are struggling with today. Right? So
sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
Now that brings me to a different point altogether. Is that possibly because, and this is for another conversation, of course, is that possibly because parents today, while they have birthed the child, don't necessarily raise the child themselves? The child is handed off to either a nanny or a grandparent or a daycare center, that kind of thing, while the parent is out earning money, traveling, going to the movies, pubbing, celebrating with friends, after party, socialize, after office socializing, etc., etc.
Right.
And the only way they reach out to their child is by buying them gifts and not. Yeah, I mean that's a different story altogether. But yeah, that's a different.
In a lot of cases, that's true. Yes, that's a different conversation, and I think I'd love to talk about that sometime.
We can do that.
Yeah. So yes, that's partly the reason why. So even if parents are actually taking care of their own children today, the whole culture of, no, I will not shout at my child. I will not, tell my child what is right and what's wrong and let them discover, doesn't work sometimes. Doesn't work. I've actually seen a parent fighting with a grandparent. The grandparent allowed a 4-year-old kid to pick up a hammer. Let him play with it. He will understand that he'll hurt his toe. That's dangerous sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
So a child needs to know. You can't just say, okay, let him light a match. It's all right. Let him figure it out. Because it may be too late before you discover that the whole house has been damaged and people have hurt.
Yeah.
So that they really have to understand. And parents need to be able to put that in place. Now, when a situation like this occurs, children all the more want to challenge those boundaries because they've never been restricted before.
Right.
So why would they take it now from you? Right?
Yeah. Very true. I mean,
right. So that is a very, very big stressor. So I think it's important to communicate with them, but not more than 2 times a day, and actually communicate with them and let them be by themselves the whole day while you're observing them from a distance. Because if you're, with them all the time, then you're not allowing them their space to process what's happening in their environment. And how they perceive the environment is very different from how you perceive the environment.
Yeah.
And they have 1,000 questions. So they keep coming back, Mama, what is this? Papa, what is this? Answer those questions, but don't make it, like someone was saying, my dad always gives me one Ramayana and one Mahabharata every time I ask him a question. I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to know how much the child can understand, how much information we should give the child and how much we shouldn't. And unfortunately for us, because this is the information age, they have access to tools that will give them information more than their mind can deal with.
Yeah.
Right? So they will come back with questions that really are not things that they will understand.
Yeah.
And how do you explain those things to them? Right?
Yeah. True.
So I think it's important that, I think it's really important that we observe what's happening with the child. It could be a change of food. It could be either overeating or eating less. It could also be eating or demanding the same food over and over again. these things are signs. If these things persist for over 2 or 3 days, then I think you should consider asking the child what's happening. Not sleeping properly, for instance. Because one of the reasons why they wouldn't be able to sleep well early is because they don't have any physical activity.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't have anything that tires you out, why will you go to sleep?
Yeah.
When you're full of energy, right?
Mama, I'm not tired.
You heard that. Huh?
Every day.
Right. Yeah, see. So if they have something to do, then and they don't think that they should go to sleep, their bodies won't allow them to go to sleep if they're not tired. So they need some amount of running around, some amount of physical activity to do to be able to tire themselves. So I think it's important that parents even watch out for this. Sleeplessness is one of the signs that uh, shows some form of disturbance, right? Uh, then the other thing is rambling. I think children tend to ramble when they're really upset about something. They don't know. They keep saying the same words over and over again, either to themselves or to their parents. They keep asking the same questions because somewhere we must understand that even though we've answered it to the best of our abilities, we have not understood or answered it to the way they want to see it. Right?
Yeah.
So they will keep asking those questions again, and that's really annoying for parents
Yeah.
again. And I don't deny it's annoying, right? When it's annoying, it is annoying.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we can get away from that. We have to be able to manage that.
Yeah, we can't just brush it off. Yeah.
Right.
Or brush them off, rather. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are a few things I think we need to watch out for. And then I think the easiest thing that happens is now I find it very, very surprising that a lot of kids very easily are given mobiles, tabs, electronic devices that they can play with.
With no
It
restrictions.
keeps, yes, and it keeps them busy, which is fine. But, they could complain of a headache and the parent won't even realize that it's because of these devices. The funny thing in our lives are in the day is this, that we use our eyes the most.
Yeah.
And we're never taught to exercise our eyes unless we have a problem. Nobody teaches children to exercise their eyes,
Yeah.
right? No one teaches them how to develop their peripheral vision. Nobody teaches them that if you've been staring at a tab for more than 15 minutes, please take a break, blink. Nobody tells them these things.
Yeah.
So you don't know how that's going to manifest. That can manifest in a very bad headache. It can manifest in irritable eyes. It can manifest in watering eyes. It can be that all of a sudden their vision is blurred and they don't understand what blurred vision is.
Yeah.
And a lot
Mama,
of
it's
kids also
hurting
have,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that. Mama,
And
not for my children, but Mama, it's hurting here. I've had friends' children
yeah,
tell them, yeah.
true. And then, because they're not in school, because they're not in a time where they have to follow routine, they're slack. And when when they're using these kind of devices, the first thing that goes off is their posture. Now, why won't they have body pains?
Yeah.
They don't realize that. Parents don't realize that very soon. I mean, if they're playing a game, whatever game, I mean, like, you either pushing buttons or, you're swiping
Yeah.
constantly, your wrist is going to hurt after a while.
Yeah.
They don't realize that it's a problem initially, but after 3 or 4 days, it can be as bad as getting a dropped wrist, or, at
Yeah.
that young age, they can develop symptoms of a carpal tunnel
Couple them, yeah.
pain or whatever. Yeah. It's also going to cause neck and shoulder
Yeah.
pain, which they won't understand at that age. Right. And then, imagine a parent saying, oh, yeah, I think, you got spondylosis to a child without even seeking a diagnosis.
Yeah.
It's just strain. It's just strain that is unnecessary strain, right? If the child has to really do something, submit a project, 12-year-old, 13-year-old child, I can understand. But what about a child that doesn't need to do all of that?
Yeah.
Right?
So
So I think it's
actually,
important.
this actually brings me to a question. Sorry, uh, a lot of schools now, especially for the age of 2 to 4, are starting online classes. Would you suggest that's a good idea? I mean, what's your opinion about that?
If you ask me, my
I think it's
first
mad. I mean, personally, I think it's like not the right thing to do. But
ridiculous, I would say.
I think so. I mean, between 2 and 4 to have a child, yeah. But schools are aggressively now advertising for students between the age of 2 and 4 to enroll in these online classes. And I have gotten calls because I have a 3-year-old child. I have actually gotten calls saying, because we had done a little bit of research earlier before the lockdown to admit the 3-year-old into school this June. We've actually gotten calls from the schools that we visited saying, "Ma'am, would you like to enroll your child in the online classes?" And I'm like, "No, I would not like to." But it seems like it's now the fad to do it, and it feels like now it is the next stress for a parent is to buy these devices, an extra laptop or an extra tab, because the child needs to be logged in for 4 hours a day, studying online classes. That seems to be the next stress, added stress to the parent. And I'm like, okay, enjoy. I mean, if you don't know how to draw the line, then nobody can help you, basically. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's
But
what happens when people are racing against time. I think it's ridiculous to expect a 2 or 4-year-old to sit in front of a computer and study. I don't see why anyone can't sit at home and teach them at that age. What are they going to learn? If you go to a typical school, they're just beginning to learn to read and write, right? At 2 is when you first hold your pencil and you're drawing those lines, standing up line and a curved line and a sleeping line, and these are the things that you need to do, which are very, very simple.
yeah,
How difficult is it to homeschool your child?
yeah,
I mean, I think, and I don't think at that age a child even needs more than 2 hours a day, really.
yeah,
I would, if you ask me, I would just say, okay, to hell with it. Let them study when they want, even if it's
yeah,
every alternate day. But
yeah.
it should
I
be
mean,
fun for them. They should want to engage in it.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Okay.
pay a
Yeah,
lakh
I
and
went
then
to
have
school
them,
where,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just, you went to
I
school.
went to school when I was 2, and I understand that, even then it was supposed to be like a play school, but I learned stuff a little earlier because the school would insist that, you started reading and writing faster. So, well, I was stubborn, so they couldn't do anything much about me because my report said, she loves poetry, she loves languages, she loves doing craft work, but she doesn't like learning
The
numbers by rote.
number. Well, there you go. They knew they should have known right there and then that you're not interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're interested more in the
So,
mind. They should have realized that. And now
but when kids today are expected to do that because the parents have hopes that they'll be doctors by the time they're enrolling for their MSET by the time they're 16, or engineering, I think that's a lot of pressure, and I don't think you should be deciding what a kid should do, a child should do, till the child comes and tells you, I mean, 12 or 13, you need to start inculcating interest, not just wait for them to say that they want to do medicine. I don't see a lot of parents inspiring children these days and trying to find them things to do. I would think it's the parents' primary responsibility to take them, show them different streams, from the age of 8 onward, without telling them that these are professions that you can choose. But, if you generally take them to a hospital, say, this is
yes,
what this doctor does, take them to an auto spare part shop and say, this is what, an engineer does, an automobile engineer does. These are the ways in which children learn.
yeah,
Take them to factories, let them go see things,
yeah,
and then they'll choose what they want to do. And if they're having difficulty, there are professional people who help them decide what they want to do if the parent is not able to decide. That's fine. There are a lot of psychometric tests that will even say today that these are the best suited jobs for your child. That's all fine, right? But the direction that parents are taking this today to get there is really, I think, a little overboard.
Mm.
You know, um, so schooling at 2 to 4 online, I think, is absolutely unnecessary. But I guess schools need to keep their systems up. They need to earn through the year. What would they do as well? Which is what I think a lot of parents don't understand. They need to stay afloat, which is why they're creating all this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then they put pressure on young parents that, okay, this is what you need to do. And then the parent thinks, okay, if I enroll the child in this class, at least I can work from home, which is even worse.
No, but you can't. That is the thing, because you have to sit with that 2-year-old child during that period. Your 2-year-old child is not going to be able to do it himself or herself. That's what
But
I
tell me honestly, how many parents actually think through
think
that,
through that, right? They know. I don't know. Yeah, I
right?
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully, a lot of schools are actually giving kids a break between classes.
Yeah.
But there are still some schools that are not doing that. Now, it's very, very different to be sitting in a classroom and engaging with your teacher and other children. It's very different to sit online because you have a completely different environment around you, first of all. Secondly, I've known of kids already that are coming to us now who've been turning off the camera and sitting without their school uniforms or playing
Yeah, I mean, they
video
learn
games
how to
on the
cheat the
phone.
system. Yeah, they learn how to cheat the system. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as it is, children find it difficult to pay attention in a 45-minute class, if it's a little stressful for them, right? They like the subject, they pick it up like that. If they don't, it is difficult for them. Now, how do you expect them to pay attention online?
Yeah.
You know, 8th, 9th, 10th now has become so important that a parent cannot say, to hell with it. If my child doesn't go to school for 1 year, I'm fine. It's not going to affect their career. That's not the way the system works right now, which I'm personally very disturbed about,
Yeah.
right? But there's nothing much you can do about that kind of a system. But before that, so if they need to participate in those classes, I understand. But before that, up to 7, or maybe state board, they need to even be there for class 7. I really wonder if it's absolutely necessary for the child to sit and learn online.
Yeah.
I would think that it's much better for the child to be homeschooled rather than to be engaged online with something like this. And to top all of that, now parents are actually enrolling them for online tuitions,
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome.
which is difficult. It's very stressful for a child.
Yeah.
And, when you're not able to pay attention, that same device becomes a real burden.
Yeah.
That's when the child actually manifests. And when the child complains, the parent doesn't understand this. The child will complain of backache, shoulder ache, eyes hurting, head aching. And the parent will say, yeah, when you're able to play, you go on playing and that doesn't hurt you because I'm interested.
Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
psychosomatic thing. Yeah.
absolutely. It is a psychosomatic thing. And the parent simply doesn't understand that this is what my child is going through. Why you just see it as a complaint from the child. But what the child is actually trying to express is, this is not something that's engaging enough for me.
Yeah.
This is not the way I would like to learn. It,
Right.
it may be difficult for a parent to be able to create an environment where the child learns. So maybe you'd like to use a blended approach of using online schooling for a while and then, sit and teach them yourselves, or engage now that the lockdown has ended, maybe engage a tutor who can come home and teach them. I guess this is going to go on for a while, maybe this in August or September. But yeah, can you imagine what's going to happen to children? It's a long time.
And then I think there's an effect of this when they return to school physically. I mean, in
Right,
August, I
absolutely.
think that we will do that conversation in next,
Uh-huh.
in the next episode. But
Right.
yeah, I want to understand how you think parents should prepare children and what they
Mhm.
should be aware of as the child goes back to school,
Mhm.
come August or September or July or whenever schools finally reopen.
Right. Yeah.
Considering the situation that the child has been in already,
Mhm.
uh, and suddenly from here they go back to what used to be, you know, and the habits have changed. So how does that affect the child, and how does that affect
Right.
the parent? And
True.
how do they need to then collaborate together
Mhm.
so that they come up on the top of it rather than um, you
Right.
know split and cause a rift kind of deal.
Right.
So in the next episode, this is what we will talk about.
Sure.
For today, we
Definitely.
thank you, and
Thank you.
this conversation has been extremely real for me because I'm a parent of three kids. I have a 13-year-old, a 11-year-old, and a 3-year-old, all
Mhm.
boys. And while we have been blessed with space around our home and things like that, because we live in an independent house, I think we still struggle with certain areas of physical activity and uh, having the kids to do something while I do what I have to do, or my husband does what he has to do
Right.
for work. uh, I'd like to think that we kind of managed it pretty decently, but some of the things that you said has really struck home, like personally, and I think I'm
Mhm.
going to have to go back and journal some things down and think about it a little bit more. And I
Right.
think the same would happen with our audience that's listening.
Mhm.
And to them, I want to say Mr. Rabindranath is available for counsel and to talk further. And you can reach out to her through Lyceum at connect@lyceum.com. And we will connect you with Mr. Rabindranath so that you can actually uh, speak with her and allow her to work with you through the issues or to overcome an issue. Thank you,
Right.
Sahana, for joining us.